Africa must have self-confidence. We cannot always depend on somebody else or on ideas from outside. We must rely on our own ideas, our own way of developing the continent, and I think we can do it.
Africa must rely on its own ideas. That's according to Peter Mutharika. And it is something the Malawian president has taken to heart. The former professor and lawyer took over the reins of the country in 2014 in the wake of a $32 million corruption scandal under the former administration. The following year, the country was hit by a myriad of climate change challenges, resulting in a drastic drop in crop production. But the Malawian government has now set aside $50 million to assist with food security until the next farming season, and has also vowed to curb corruption in the country. I spoke exclusively to President Peter Mutharika to find out more about his action plan for Malawi. I'm Beatrice Marshall. Welcome to Talk Africa. Your Excellency, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Let me start by looking at Malawi's food situation, because that is what's been making the headlines over the last couple of months. Malawi has declared a state of emergency over its worsening food crisis. There are reports that up to 78% of the country is currently affected. Exactly what is the situation, the food security situation in your country? How many people exactly are affected?
First of all, we have not declared a state of national emergency. We have declared a state of disaster. Legally, those two are different. Because a state of emergency, it means you suspend certain things like habeas corpus and so forth. And this is a state of national disaster. Now, yes, most of the country is affected. You see, what happened was last year we had that terrible flood, January, February 2015, and then in the north part of the country we had the drought. And this year, so our harvest went down, but this year gone down further because of the effects of the El Niño effect. And so it's going to be worse this year. According to estimates, probably about 8 million people are in some kind of jeopardy, food insecure, out of about 17 million people. So it is a serious situation, and you see, it doesn't look like it improved because weather patterns are changing every year, and the rain is no longer predictable, so it makes it very, very difficult. But we are certainly doing our best to make sure that we respond to the situation.
You alluded to 2015, where you had the twin disasters of flooding and drought as well. Had you recovered prior to this year's emergency? Had you recovered at all?
Well, we're in the process of recovery. We were in the process of recovery, and then we got this other problem, obviously, though it makes it difficult now to have recovery. It will take some time, as long as we have unpredictable, rains. Makes it very, very difficult, and also the delays. When I was growing up, you see, the rains used to come in October, and by Christmas time we're eating green maize, and we're looking forward to that. Nowadays, the rain comes quite late, sometimes November, December. If it comes at all, and if it comes, it's either so extreme, as happened 2 years ago, floods and so forth, or it doesn't come at all. Or very erratic, it comes and it stops. This year it started very well, but after some time, it just stops. And maize is a very weak crop. It's not resistant to a lot of challenges, and most of the crop just wilted and was destroyed. So that's the problem.
So in terms of the Southern African region and the impact that is having on the food situation in Malawi, because several other countries as well, Zimbabwe, Zambia, as well as South Africa, Angola as well, are having a food crisis of their own. What impact is this having on your country?
Well, yeah, it's obvious impact is that it's competitive, and therefore it means that we're going to pay more for the maize when there's a shortage. of maize and everyone wants products, prices will go up. So that's a problem. And also it means we have to look outside Africa, outside the region, places like Brazil, Mexico, Ukraine. That means transportation. And maybe, maybe double the cost, not necessarily double, but a high percentage as would have paid. So all those challenges, and Malawi is landlocked, which means getting food once it gets to buyer. Mozambique is trying to get it over land through trucks to Malawi. So yeah, it is a challenge, but we're working on it. And I think we can, we'll succeed. We're confident that we will. We started early, but the main thing we would like those people who would like to assist us now. We're also buying maize domestically. We already started buying, I believe, over 40 or 50,000 metric tons have already been bought. I'm going to need 1.2 million metric tons to feed the country next year. So it's huge, both in terms of volume and in terms of logistically to get it to Malawi. It's going to be a real challenge, but we're working on it.
So you're talking about Malawi needing the food assistance right now before the end of the year.
Correct.
For your government, on your government side though, what measures have you put in place to ensure that the solution is addressed in the short term and that there's a long-term solution to Malawi's perennial drought?
Yeah, in the short term, of course, is buying the maize. Make sure you buy it either locally, as we're doing, through the Agriculture and Marketing Board, which is a government agency. So we have this entity, which is a government agency, but also operating as a private company with some social responsibilities, as well as economic responsibility, commercial responsibilities. So we're doing that short term. We have to buy the maize. And short term also we have to start growing maize during the winter. We have started right now growing. And the good thing about maize, the new variety of maize, can grow in 90 days. And although we have seasons like winter, but there are mild winters, there's no frost. So you can grow maize almost any time of the year, during 12 months. So we hope we can do thrice cropping. We can 90 days, 90 days, 3 times. So we're already planting maize right now, small holder farms. Long term, we want to be food sufficient. As you probably know, during the time my brother was president, he introduced the import subsidy program. And for 10 years, Malawi was food sufficient completely. We're selling maize all over Africa, and we're donating overseas, several countries. We're doing that through these subsidized input programs, inputs we had, maize, seed, fertilizer, and so forth. Now, because of the changing weather pattern, the challenge is different in the sense that the inputs are no longer effective, useful. So we have to think about other ways of doing this. So we are moving away now from rain-fed agriculture to irrigation. Massive irrigation, and now it's not easy because, first of all, you have to have power, and our power capacity is very small. At the moment, 351 megawatts. Therefore, you need power, and in most places near the lake and rivers, there are no power lines there. So you're talking about solar, and as you know, solar is extremely expensive. For 1 megawatt, you need 1 hectare land. Then that is another issue of acquiring land. You have to have people who don't want to sell you, or some people want the land and quarrels and difficulties of getting the land. So there are all sorts of challenges, but we're going to go into irrigation no matter what happens. And so that's why when I answer. But then we're moving to other forms of food. And I think that will complement winter cropping. And of course, rain-fed, that means that we're going to stop rain-fed agriculture. We're simply saying we're going to complement it with irrigation and winter cropping. So those are the long-term plans, irrigation, and not depending on rain-fed agriculture anymore.
And many are going to be asking you, though, as you alluded to the later President Mutharika's agricultural subsidy program, where, you know, in 2005, Malawi was exporting grain to the region, and today it is again prone to drought issues and food crisis. Exactly what went wrong?
Yeah, exactly. What went wrong is the weather, basically the weather, because the input programs are there. The FISP, farm input subsidy program, is there, and the seed subsidy is there. We're subsidizing the seeds. What went wrong is simply the weather. But this year we planted. The rains came January, February, we planted. There was very good rain in the first month, and then it stopped, and most of the crop was destroyed. So what went wrong is the weather change. There's no question about it, that this thing is real, change, and we are certainly experiencing in Africa. So that's what went wrong. It's not policies or anything at all. It's your objective conditions over which we seem to have no control. But we know how to find a response to these unpredictable objective conditions. We need now to find a response. That's why we're now talking about all these other measures that I've mentioned, including resilient crops like tubers, like cassava, for example, potatoes, yams, those kinds of things. We need to do that. Also to mindset change. That food is not only maize, that you can eat without having to eat necessarily maize.
And there was a debate about that in the last few weeks, Your Excellency, where there was a debate that as the situation deteriorated, there were reports that you had asked Malawi people to diversify their food supplies, including eating issues such as grasshoppers and mice. What exactly did you say?
No, I didn't say it. What I said was, I wish I had the tape with me. What I said was that in addition to maize, that there are other things we can eat, crops that are more resistant to weather conditions, and I mentioned three as a group. I said the cassava, potatoes, and yams. Cassava, I say ginangwa, potatoes, I say mbatata, and yams. Now this is the one, I say zicheche. It's Z-I-C-H-E-C-H, zicheche. Now, some journalists, he thought I say zitete. No, zitete means grasshoppers. I don't even know that word zitete, because in my area, where we come from, we call them nazombe, grasshoppers. I never heard of the word zitete, but they said I say zitete, but I was talking about the three group of tubers, cassava, potato, and yams. Now, those are very good supplements, but also sweet Irish potatoes. You can also eat that. You don't have to be maize all the time, on sim all the time. So if we do that, in fact, some of these are more nutritious. If we did that, we'll ease the pressure on the maize and on the flour. So that's what I said, and I hope we can correct that.
Moving on, though, you have been running your government for the last 2 years against the background of drought, against the background of flooding and lack of donor support in budgetary support. How difficult has it been for you, and how have you managed to do that?
Very difficult. When I took over the government in August, in June, almost 2 years ago, we had what was known as cash gate. I don't know if you've heard of this, but under the previous government of the Julius Banda administration, I think there was a conspiracy of government officials, private sector, and civil servants. They siphoned off money from the treasury to the tune of about 24 billion kwacha, which comes to about probably 70, 80 million US dollars for a small economy like Malawi. That's a big amount of money. Now, because of that, the donors were giving us 40% of budget support. They decided that they were going to stop giving us budget support. So it means when I came in there are two problems. One, that the treasure has been completely cleaned by the cash gate. And secondly, that the donors decided that they would stop giving recurrent budget support until the system had improved, and they put certain conditions, which I think we made all the conditions. But so there's been a continuous changing of goalposts. I think we had 3 conditions now. There are about 20 conditions, a whole range from governance to what have you, minority rights, and all those kinds of things put there. So the essence is that the 40% is gone. Therefore, it meant that we had to find how to run a government with 40% less. For day-to-day management, but it's a miracle that in 2 years we have managed, to manage. I mean, there have been difficulties sometimes, shortage of drugs in the hospital, but we have managed to pay the teachers, the nurses, civil servants, pay our utility bills, and run the country, and even do some infrastructure, build new roads, and so forth on our own, without budget support. In the process, we have learned a lot, so we're on the road towards, which we always intended anyway, towards self-sufficient and moving away from donor support, at least with respect to recurrent expenditure. It came out a bit too early, but we have managed in spite of that. And I think that's obviously a direction that we're going to go, not by choice, by design, but I think in the end, in the interest of Malawi, because I'd always say that I wanted Malawi to be self-sufficient within 5 years, to be independent of donor support, as with respect to the recurrent budget.
All right. If I can just go back to the conditionalities that you've mentioned, and you have talked about having met the conditionalities by the donors before resumption of aid, but that still hasn't been forthcoming. Do you feel that there is still a crisis of confidence, though, in your government, or is corruption still a problem in Malawi?
Well, corruption is always a problem almost in every country in the world. But the thing is, we undertook to fight corruption, we undertook to cut expenditure, we undertook to reduce the wage bill, and all those things. Well, cut back on expenditure. This is the first time since December, when I was in London, I've traveled out of the country just to 7 months to cut backs. Missed over 12 very important international conferences, but I want to save money. So we cut back on travel and also the necessary expenditures, doing all that to make sure that the resources we have can be used properly. So we're asked to cut expenditure, which we have done, and try to reform the civil service, especially financial management, which we are doing. That cannot be done overnight, as you know. It's very complicated. We're reforming, but what happened after that, we had new conditions like access to information bills, and information like minority rights, governance, all sorts of things, and we're doing those already. But we certainly are fighting corruption. This is an ongoing fight, as almost every country faces those kinds of problems of people, civil servants who lack integrity. So we're doing that.
So in terms of Malawi itself, it is part of a very attractive wider market in the sub-region as well as on the continent. In terms of Malawi itself and its trade ties with China, what is the level of trade between Malawi and China, and where do you see the opportunities for trade, for manufacturing, for industrialization for Malawi from China?
From China. It's a growing market. We started our bilateral relations with China only 9 years ago, December 2007. So it's only 9 years ago. And during that time, the relationship has grown. It's clear that there's a trade deficit against us in favor of China. We don't have enough products to sell to them. Although we have a duty-free market of over 400 products, but we cannot take advantage of it at the moment. You mentioned manufacturing. Now we're going to manufacturing. That's why I tried these investments when manufacturing from in agriculture. Agriculture, for example, manufacturing to bring in add value to various crops like soybeans, cowpeas, pigeon peas, peanuts, and so forth. So that will provide that. And then, of course, mining, growing, and manufacturing in general. So we will be moving into manufacturing because for all these years, Malawi has been an importing and consuming country, but we now want to be an exporting and manufacturing country. And we're doing that, and I think we'll succeed. So by increasing foreign investment, manufacturing of those products that can be exported, but also growing high value agricultural products like soybeans, cotton, and the other cowpeas, we can in fact do that. So in the end, we'll be able to access the China market. But at the moment, but in overall, the relationship has been good for Malawi in terms of infrastructure. The Chinese have built roads, one or two universities, our parliament, and various types of infrastructure. So it is a very beneficial, I think, relationship, and we certainly want it to continue and also to expand it.
Right. So finally, Your Excellency, you have been now running your government for 2 years. What are your plans for Malawi for the next 3 years?
Our plan is here to move Malawi from aid to trade. We've got to do that. And therefore, establishing the framework, but for example, attract foreign investment, manufacturing, and so forth, so we can take advantage of all these markets that I've outlined, where we're going duty-free without reciprocity. So we take advantage of that. So we'll be doing that. The next 2 or 3 years, we'll be moving into irrigation in a major way, at 2 levels, small farmers at 1 level, so the means of agriculture, and then there will be Green Belt Authority, which will be in my office, the President's office, to deal with the large commercial farming. So we're negotiating with some of the big commercial farmers in the immediate, but eventually, obviously, government and others will also move into that. So irrigation will be one of the factors. And then we would like, obviously, to create some kind of resilience, find a way of responding to the threats, like droughts, floods, and all these various things that are threat. We have to respond to that, find a way of predicting and then responding. But we are taking Malawi in the direction of self-sufficiency, of course, within a global market. And that means less dependence on foreign assistance or complete cessation of assistance with respect to recurrent budget. But obviously, almost everyone, there's no country that has developed without inflow of capital from outside. Private capital, that will encourage. And that's why making all these efforts to attract foreign investment. So that's why we're taking Malawi the next several years.
Your final comment, Your Excellency, yes, to the people of Malawi, to the wider African region, to the international community, and to your partners like China.
I personally am very excited. As I said at the London Forum in December, that Africa, actually, the average profit in foreign investment is 80%, globalized, but Africa is 30%, because of cheap labor and raw materials are right there. So I say that instead of seeing Africa as a burden, they must see Africa now as an opportunity. I think that will be my message, not only to Africa, but also to the rest of the world. Africa is a tremendous opportunity, just waiting for somebody with initiative and a sense of direction to exploit it for the benefit of everybody.
To China?
To China? Oh yeah, China, we continue. I think the relationship, China has committed itself at the FOCAC meeting in Johannesburg. I don't know if you were there or not, but came out with 5 principles. China wants health, education, social development, infrastructure development, and so forth. China really, I think, does want African, apart from just trading, I think they do want Africa to really develop and be on its own. And you can see examples of what they've done in China over the last 30 years. And my message to them is to continue to work with us as the others. That there's room for everybody in Africa now. You know, our old friends, Western countries, there and always be there. But we have our new friends now. The BRICS countries, they're friends of us. And there's room, they're not mutually exclusive. So we want both groups to see Africa as an opportunity, but also to respect us, to respect Africa. And view now is that most of these investors are not taking a different view of Africa. I think they listen to what we want, and I think they understand that in the end, we Africans know more about our problems. We live here than somebody who lives in some foreign capital.
Excellency, thank you very much.
Good. My pleasure. Good.
And that's all we have time for this week on Talk Africa. Remember, you can join the conversation at home through Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. And do join us again next week for another edition of Talk Africa. Goodbye.